Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday night Fireside Chat. My name is Mark, and Patrick's with me this evening on Fireside Chat, and we hope we're going to entertain you for the next half an hour. How are you, Pat?
I'm good yourself, mate.
I'm good, thanks. We only saw each other 5 minutes ago, but 2 minutes. We've been sitting here for 5 minutes, but I'll still shake your hand.
Exactly, yeah.
It was a tradition that was started a long time ago on Fireside Chat, to shake hands at the beginning of the show. Well, we're here tonight. We're going to be reviewing some of the sightings of the last week. That is one of the reasons why Patrick is here, because he's had all the luck this last week, and I have seen some wonderful insects and flowers, but Pat has seen some wonderful cats, and Pat will get to that in a minute. But first, I just want to mention apologies for our breakdown of our live drives at the moment. We are battling with some of the software and some of the hardware, and just in general, there's been one thing after the other. We seem to fix one thing and we're challenged with another, and that's what they are. They are all challenges, and this is because it is a pioneering technology that we are engaging in here. It is all something we're learning from as we go along, and I'm sure that the people down the line in 5 years' time who are going to be filming outdoors 3D, I hope they're going to be saying thank you to the likes of Wild Earth and Safari TV for all the hard work that we've put into getting this kind of a rig and this kind of a concept going, because it is unique. It is a one-off, it is a prototype, and it is bound to have teething problems. Well, these are the teething problems. Anyways, Pat, I don't know, what was your, let's get to sightings, let's get off of technical. That's what we're here for. We're not here for the technical. I think generally what happens is Pat and I twiddle our thumbs when the technical things happen, because we don't know how to contribute. We can only give moral support. But let's talk about sightings. I mean, you've had fantastic sightings this week.
Yeah, very much so. The Chinglans have been in the area, and the Gras boys, and yeah, I mean, I've seen some awesome sightings for the past week or so. Yeah,
both of our boys have been here.
Yeah.
And I think every sighting that you've had, as soon as I go out, I can't find them.
Yeah.
Maybe I've lost my touch.
No,
maybe you've got it.
No, you just happen to look in the wrong area.
But I think starting with, there was that one fantastic sighting you had of Mishu with that ufutsu, with that tortoise.
Yeah, that was a great one, I must say. I was upset, and we were just driving along to the car town, and I stopped to look at the elephant tracks on the road, and I nearly jumped out of the vehicle just to show you guys the elephant tracks on the road, but I just said to myself, let me leave it, and then I will probably find a nice fresh tracks on the soft sand to show you. And as we drove around the corner, and then Seb, look, was shouting at Ingwe, lapet. And I was like looking around like this. Oh wow! It was like Misha lying down in long grass and then eating the tortoise. And as we stopped and then positioned the vehicle, and he got up and picked it up and just walked about 5 meters away from us. And again, he lied down in the long grass and then started eating the tortoise.
So had he only just caught it?
Yeah, it was still very fresh. Yeah.
So but when you saw it, was it still walking?
No, you can see the legs are still like shaking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were trying to get out of the leopard's mouth. And then they just picked it up and just lie down instead of like crunching the bones and open up the shell and then just eating the meat. It was great. Yeah, and they actually growled at Seb. Was not snarling and growling at Seb as like moving around and trying to get a better shot of him lying down in long grass. Yeah. So they finished the whole thing just right in front of us. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Because you went back later. I know. I mean, I didn't watch those drives. I wasn't directing, but I did see a few images, both in post-editing stuff, or rather post-production stuff. There was that one moment where I noticed he picked up the tortoise, and I think it must have been a moment where he had already been eating at it, and it must have been dead because the legs were just hanging on the tortoise. And, it's not very often that a leopard actually gets into a tortoise, but I think Mishu has had some practice over the last year or so. I mean, he's been catching terrapins and tortoises since he was a cub, since we've known him. But never before, that we know of, he obviously has, but never before have we seen him actually getting into the tortoise.
No, it was also my first time to see him actually eating the tortoise. Yeah. But I remember just a while ago, and I I saw both boys when they were still about this big, probably about 8-9 months old. Just playing with big tortoise and like hitting, eating side to side, and then they pick it up and then just drop it in the ground because it was so quite small to actually pick up a large tortoise and break it open. So he obviously learned from
trial and error.
Absolutely,
eventually. I mean, I saw him with a few terrapins over time. There was one memorable moment that I had with him, and it was late summer. It was last summer. It was probably this year sometime, February, March maybe. He was at Chelapan, and the Chelapan water was very, very large. It was still very, very big. In fact, the water went right up to that little jackalberry that's on the edge of Chelapan, and both of the boys were there. Induna was underneath his favourite gardenia. Mishu was on the other side, and he actually managed to catch a little terrapin. And for some reason, he climbed into that tiny little jackalberry. And then while he was trying to fiddle with it, he dropped it, and it dropped just a few inches into the water. And then eventually they left, and they disappeared. And I remember I got out of the vehicle after the two leopard left, and I went to have a look, and I fished this young terrapin out of the water, and sadly, he had bitten it and he had killed it, but he obviously hadn't had a chance to eat it. But after you saw that, you went back there, and when did you go back there to find the shell?
I think it was just 2 days after.
Was it?
Yeah, after we had seen him there. Yeah.
Was there anything there? I mean, besides the shell, was there anything inside? I mean, had he finished it completely?
Not completely. There was quite a few meat left in the. Inside the shell, the legs, the two legs, and the rear legs actually, they were still sticking out there, so it obviously didn't able to get into it. Yeah.
I mean, I always feel for tortoises. They're one of these anomalies of nature that with this hard shell, this very slow movement, and one can only sort of wonder how, after millions of years, they haven't really evolved any serious kind of defense mechanism other than that hard shell. And I think with the development of a hard shell, so the predators have also developed very strong jaws and the capabilities of eating them. But I guess these things happen. We have no idea how many tortoises there are. We get some idea. Just recently, just before this rain we had, there were a lot of tortoise tracks, so we get a little bit of an idea of how many tortoises there could be around, and that's only a fraction. I'm sure there must be some way to do some sort of a count based on formula, as they do with game counts, where you can count how many tortoise tracks you see, and you can put in a formula, and you'll come up with some figure that will invariably be within 10% of a true figure, in much the same way as doing proper aerial game counts or strip counts. Now, aerial game counts is a plane that flies in a grid, flies up and down, and they apply formula to the numbers that they see. That's only for really large mammals, because you can only really see some of the large mammals from the air, and it's also done in the dry season, late dry season. But they apply formula, and they extrapolate from that, and they come up with figures that are thought to be within a 10% figure of the actual numbers, and the same with driving strip counts. But I'm sure there must be some way to get some idea of how many tortoises. There certainly are a lot. I mean, when we see the tortoise tracks, there are a number of tortoises out there, but you can't stop feeling something for a tortoise when it's being eaten by a leopard. You expect these animals to go for things that can run away. Tortoise can't exactly, well, it can run, but it's not going to get very far with a bounding leopard behind it. But yeah, I really envy you that sighting. I really do. I haven't seen much since I've been back. Some wonderful sightings, but none of the big stuff. And the other, of course, the biggest of the whole week has got to have been the four boys also at Chelapan. Funny enough, talking about Chelapan.
Yeah. So there have been lots of dagga boys around here.
Lots of
dagga boys.
Dagga boys.
Yeah.
Well, it's strange that we had. I know they were full, but it's strange that we had the four Machingalans, but they missed all the dagga boys that we have lying around. I mean, I would have thought it would have been nice. Okay, it wouldn't have been nice to have one of our big buffalo bulls being killed and eaten, but it would have been nice to have them sticking around for a while. That sighting you had, though, it wasn't exactly just a flat cat sighting. By the looks of things, when I saw some of the footage, those lion were weren't exactly just lying down.
No, they were not too active, but yeah, they were just kind of like getting up and walk a short distance and then lie down again, get up, walk, lie down, get up, walk, lie down, and eventually went to Chilapen and drank there, and then 2 Moses they were just lying up on the water's edge.
Yeah.
And they eventually just got up and moved into the fixed stuff where we couldn't see them anymore. Yeah. And again, it was just very, very thick. There was no way we could have bashed through that thick bushes there to get to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were beautiful sighting. Yeah, it was a beautiful
From
sighting.
what I
They were
feel,
very
yeah.
full stomachs, and they could hardly walk. There was, as you know, that the lions are very well fed.
I know, and you know
Very
something
lazy,
that far too often we think big fat lions, they're full, and that was a hot day too.
It
was
was.
a very hot day. And so often we think, we've got a guaranteed sighting for the afternoon. Lion, full bellies, flat on their sides, very, very hot day, they're not going anywhere. And I don't know why I still concentrated on Chalapan. I was so convinced that these lions weren't going to go very far. And I concentrated all our efforts on that immediate area. I didn't even think of widening the search. But there were some of the Voyatella vehicles that did do a slightly wider search, and they didn't come up with anything. So it must have been just after, I think, Ephraim. Must have been down Weaver's Nest and then Elephant Skull. Must have been just after that and just before dark maybe that these lions started moving, because much later that evening we went out to have a look to see where they could have gone, and we found their tracks. Heading up onto Weaver's Nest, then up to Treehouse Dam, and they must have drunk at Treehouse Dam and then went back down to Weaver's Nest, onto Gary Main, and then they turned east along Gary Main, on and off the road towards Baboon Pan, which is the southern equivalent across Gary Main from Twin Dams, and then through the Milwaukee Riverbed and out the other side, and then just beyond Leadwood Road. And for those of you who do watch the map and do follow us on the map, just east of Leadwood Road Junction on Gary Main was some tracks where they did a 90-degree turn and headed south. And then just this evening, I mentioned it to you and I got the email. Just this evening I got an email from Pam, and Pam just sending me an update of the cats from the week, mentioning that barely a day later all 4 of them were down on Mala Mala, so they covered some considerable distance.
Yeah.
I think, you know what I think, because it was just before the Majingis came up here that we had the Kahumas and the Kijimas. Now I wasn't on drive, and I was very lucky to see them, because there's one day that I went to fetch Pat at the gate, and I wasn't doing the drive that morning, I was directing, but I was lucky enough to go out and go and fetch Pat and then come back, and we found the 2 males and one of the females on Sandy Patch. So I have seen lion. Sadly I just haven't seen lion with you, but that particular day they were still up there the day before. Sorry, I just got beetles crawling in my hair, so I'm going to get them out before they almond bugs, they're flying around. Oh, this is a shield bug or a stink bug that when it's nice it smells like almonds, but when you touch it, it smells worse. But it's an acid, so it stings. Here's one on my shirt, and I wanted. So now I'm smelling of this stuff. I digress. Distracted as usual by insects. They are in my hair. These particular insects swarm, and they can be quite distracting, to say the least. But anyways, let me get back to lion, off the bugs. We had the Kijimas, the 2 big males from north, from Buffelshoek, and we had the Kahuma females with 2 of the cubs. We had a real pride. For the first time in I don't know how long, we actually had a real pride of lion here, in terms of males, females and cubs, and we so seldom have seen that in the last year or 18 months even. It's been a long time since we've had that many. In fact, there was that one time, we didn't have any males, but we had the whole Styx pride on Yola Road South. They were eating that warthog. I think I was on camera with you. You were presenting.
Yeah.
And it was getting dark, and they picked up the warthog's head, or the youngster did.
Yes, yeah.
And it was too heavy.
Oh, wow.
And they went up, they were coming up Central Road, and this little lion cub was, I don't even think that lion's alive anymore. That little one, that young female. Maybe she is. Maybe she's just big. But anyway, she was trying to. She didn't want to leave the head of this warthog. They'd killed a warthog on Yala Road South. They hit Central Road and started coming down towards Djuma Waterhole, Djuma Dam. And this youngster had this head of the warthog, and it was too heavy. It was kept dropping it, and it was lagging behind. And eventually, it left the warthog head to catch up with the rest of the pride. And then, just as we were saying goodbye to everybody, the one female came rushing out of nowhere to grab the head. And she must have been able to eat more of it or carry it a lot easier. But other than that, we haven't really had very nice lion sightings. But having had the Kajimo and the Kahumas up here, I think, because they were calling, I think these Majingis heard them from down south, and they wanted to come investigate, and that's what brought them up here. As full-bellied as they were, I think that's what brought them up here. What do you think about that?
Now, with the next morning after we had seen Machingala, Chelapen and Ephraim on the same morning actually, on his way back from the drive, and then he saw the vultures circling around quarantine, and they went to investigate, and they found the young buffalo bull carcass there. So, and their tracks were coming from the north going south, so they went across quarantine, so they made a kill.
The Gajimas?
No, the
Machingis.
The Machingis, yeah. So they made a kill in quarantine, and then they headed down south, and then they just chilled out the Chelapen, and then eventually headed back south.
So so their full bellies was from above kill.
Yes, yeah.
You see, I don't know why I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and again, Seb and I, on the way back from the north, from the drive as well, we saw those vultures were actually on Belsuk cut line, filming those buffaloes came from the north to the south, and we saw them also kind of descending just around quarantine and Vitila Lodge.
Yeah.
And we got back here, and we were like standing outside final control and looking at them where they were actually going to land. And that's when Ephraim told me that they saw them landing somewhere in quarantine. I'm not sure exactly where about in quarantine, but they said they actually landed somewhere in quarantine, and they finished off that buffalo carcass that the Machingalans killed. Yeah. But they followed the tracks here from quarantine all the way to Chelapen.
And that's how they found them that morning.
Yeah. So and then you must be right, because as you said, the Gajimas and the Gajimas were calling on quarantine, and
okay. So it was just okay, but I still think that they came up here by hearing them.
Yeah.
And then they just happened to find. Yeah. So that young buff could have been from that small group of there's 12 or so. It's like a small breeding herd. Have you seen them?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, there's that small breeding herd. They must have split from a big herd, perhaps.
Yeah. I think so.
So you don't know where that kill was?
No, I don't know. But if I'm just at quarantines, I just
You know, this only highlights how in only a couple of hours you can miss something entirely. And I was here. I mean, I had been here. Obviously, hadn't been out on drive and stuff, but I'd been here in final control, and But I guess we just didn't chat about it, and I didn't. Yeah. I don't listen to the game drive radio when I'm inside FC. But by the time I went out in the afternoon, I think it was all gone. When there was no sign of the Machingalans, there was no sign of vultures, there was no sign of any. Well, let's put it this way: it just wasn't different from the day before. So, just within the space of a day, you can have 4 big male lions come and kill a young buffalo, eat it, and disappear, and go back down south without much other than a few tracks as a trace.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that morning, I didn't think that they're going to go anywhere.
No, I didn't think so either, especially because it was so hot, and I thought, that's a sure thing. And I even thought, well, let's get them, because there were storm clouds brewing. It was getting very, very grey and very, very threatening down in the south, and I thought, well, we might get rained out before it gets rained out. Even if all we see are flat cats and maybe an ear above the grass, let's get there, because there's also the fact that some of you don't manage to watch both drives. Some of you can watch the morning and not the afternoon, and vice versa. So it's nice for us sometimes, if we see something on the morning drive, to be able to go back there in the afternoon, and the same and the other way around, so that everybody who does watch, in whatever times that are regular for you to watch our live safaris, it's nice for us to be able to show those of you in the afternoon what we saw in the morning. And I think in all my years of being so sure about lion, and especially 4 big male lion being so full, having settle down at a place like Warripan where there was water. Now there are a couple of things that happen. They lie down, they digest. They got very, very hot. They would have needed to wake up and drink, as well as go to the toilet. There would have been a lot of things that they would have needed to do before they moved off. And I was so sure. But this is just proof that you can never be sure. Nothing is predictable. Even though you might think that a lion that is so full is not going to move, and especially on a very, very hot day, don't ever take it for granted. I mean, this is a lesson that I've just learned. I have learned it times before, but not to the extent that we had it with the Machinga lions. The other thing was that there were a lot of buffalo tracks around. I mean, we had seen that evening, we found 21 buffalo bulls lying in the water at Twin Dams, and a lot of those buffalo had just before then had been spread out around Chelapan. And of course, while we were looking for the lion, for those of you that remember, there were buffalo tracks everywhere, and that's uncanny. I've lost my train of thought. But anyways, there were buffalo tracks running right through the area where these buffalo, or rather where the lion were, and it's clear that the buffalo could have been instrumental in moving the lion off and encouraging them to move a little bit quicker. But something must have also made them move further. If buffalo chase lion, they're going to run. Being full like that, they're going to run a little bit and they're going to lie down again. I didn't really expect them to go as far as they did. Anyways, that was one of those things. Next week, the tables turn. I see the animals. You're going to drive around looking for flowers.
And remarkable creatures. Yeah.
And remarkable creatures. Speaking of which, have you seen any special things being summer?
Quite a few flowers and quite a few bugs and insects. And obviously lots of turtles around, as we discussed about it earlier. Yeah.
Do you know that I found a mamba the other day?
No.
Yeah, we found a black mamba. Catherine and I were on Vubu Road. Sadly, he was curled up in top of just near that Mpisi Kaya, just near the hyena den on Mvubu Road. We were driving along, and I stopped because I don't know what made me look, but I don't know what made me recognize it as a black mamba. But I did. All I saw was one coil, and I reversed. But obviously, the sound of the vehicle and that scared the snake off. It was a big one. It must have been about 8 foot, and he was in a buffalo thorn on top of a termite mound. You know that part of the road where you got to go a little bit on the side because there's erosion, and the right side of the car when you're going north, the bumps a little bit.
Yeah.
Just on the left there's a Shadulu there. That Shadulu is a termite mound. It's not really, but it's the same equivalent. But termite mound that has a buffalo thorn on top, and this mamba was curled up there. We managed to just get the last few feet, the last 3 or 4 feet of it going down the tree, and then I noticed, and looking at the footage later on, you could actually see all the branches moving as it got down to into the lower reaches of the tree and then disappeared. But other than that, one of the fantastic things that I found, and it was, I think, actually before I went on leave, and we must actually go back there, it's been a little bit wet to drive down there. And some of you may remember last year when Karula and when the boys were still a little bit younger than they are now, just off the western edge of the open area that we call Quarantine, there's that little track that runs up to Zoe's Road. And down in the drainage line, just west of that, and I hope you're following me, there is a mud pan. There's a beautiful mud pan that has been dry, and in dry times we've actually parked in that dry clay with a jackalberry and a fuchsia, tree fuchsia, or the scotia just above it. We've seen Karula with a nyala kill there. We've seen Karula with at least 2 impala kills there over different times with the boys. And there was a time Peter Pretorius and I were there last year when it was full of water that we saw a snouted cobra swimming in the water trying to catch things. But in all the time that I've been here with that pan, I've never seen the bullfrogs there. And Tara and I went for a walk one day. We went out to go and look at plants and flowers and see how the grasses were doing. Just a little bit of a training walk, just to teach each other things, because we all know different things and we can all teach each other. And that's part of the process of us all upgrading our knowledge, is that we'll go for a walk, we'll go and do something together, and I'll say, do you know this? And Tara will say, do you know that? And we want to do a lot more of that to broaden our knowledge base. And Tara and I got to that drainage line and we started walking all the way down it, and it had been very, very heavy rains. The water was actually flowing, and that particular pan that is nestled between 2 big termite mounds was full of bullfrogs. I know people catch them and eat them.
I haven't heard them calling there since the beginning of the race.
It's the only place that they were calling them. In fact, there were a couple of places, because the water was flowing, They were breeding, obviously, in full breeding swing. And Jess was telling me that from Vuyatela they can hear some of them at the top end of Gowrie Dashboard. Then they could. Now the bullfrog's another one of these frogs that will only breed in a very, very short period of time when there's good water and when they can be assured that the water is going to stay there. But the reason why I bring up the bullfrogs is because there's an incredible sequence of events that take place with bullfrogs, especially with the big territorial male. He'll actually watch over his tadpoles, and they are known to dig troughs, to dig channels, or rather canals. When the water that their tadpoles are growing in starts drying up, they will actually dig a channel from that water to more permanent water to let the tadpoles swim into deeper water so that they can complete their metabolism. And it's something that I've only ever seen on film. I've lived around bullfrogs all my life, but I've never actually seen the process. And I think it's probably time. It's probably dry enough soon to be able to take that little trek that goes down to that little pan and maybe go and have a look and see if we can see some bullfrogs and see if we can see any activity down there. Lots happening. There are a lot of flowers out there that we need to look at, we need to photograph, some of them we need to identify, some that I don't know even. I was talking about the heliotropiums earlier on one of my drives. I have found a few, by no means as profuse as they were, when was it, 2 years ago? The previous summer, when things were all pioneering the soils, the first plants were coming out. But it's only starting. I mean, things are starting to come into flower now in a big way. We're still getting the lilies, the crinum lilies. There's still a lot that's going to be happening. I'm looking forward to a great rest of the summer. We've still got 4 months of summer.
Yeah. Wild fruits as well.
Oh yeah, the sour plums are starting to come.
Plums, yeah.
I found somebody had stopped on Gowrie Main and found a sour plum. Must have taken all of them because there were no fruits left, but I could see the skins. Drive 10 meters and find a skin in the road.
Could have been Aubrey.
Aubrey, yeah.
Yeah, I brought the whole lot here.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the start.
I remember last year, I know where there's some sour plums because I remember being with Rex on Drive and we stopped for Rex to pick up some of the sour plums. So we're going to be looking out for those. The sour plums are really, really nice. Very high vitamin C fruit. We're going to stop and try and find some of those. But it's not all about looking, and it's not all about hearing, and it's not all about smelling. Sometimes, and it's this time of the year, it's all about tasting, and it's time to do some tasting. We've got maybe the false marulas are going to be coming in. Well, all the marulas themselves. The fruits are still a little bit green, but January, now's the time of the year when the marula fruits are going to start coming into season. And I'm hoping, beyond all hope, I'm hoping that this is going to bring those big elephant bulls back again, and we're going to be able to sit under a marula tree and watch them pick them up one by one and feed on the marula fruits. The false marula fruits, which are tiny little berries as opposed to the bigger ones of the marulas. I'm going to be looking forward to tasting them. The other thing that I didn't find last year, they weren't in fruit, and maybe it's because the birds and the monkeys get them, are the jacket plums.
Jacket plums, yeah. Also
We've got a couple of jacket plums here, and I know they're down in the drainage line below us, and I know where there are some jacket plums, nice big trees up on Zoe's Road and other roads, but strangely enough, in all the time that I've been here, I haven't found their fruit, and it's been a long time, and they're probably for me one of my favourite fruits, jacket plums.
Are they?
Yeah, well, I mean they're tiny, but if you take at least a small handful, you get a really good taste of them. And I'm looking forward to the marulas too, because on a really hot day when you're really, really tired and thirsty, just pop one of those in your mouth, and it'll just suck on the stone with that fibrous fruit around it. What's your favourite fruit?
Oh, my favourite fruit. Let me just quickly think about it. Yeah.
The other one is the num num.
Num num. I think
What's it called?
Saw plants are my favourite fruits. Yeah. You know what the people say? They said they're actually good for hangover. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. They're so sour, they just wake you up quickly.
Exactly, yeah.
Good vitamin C. In fact, a lot of the fruits that we have now, funnily enough, are very, very high in vitamin C. And one of the theories behind that is that it starts dosing the animal, or rather it starts... Oh, gosh, I'm covered in them.
Stink bugs. Yeah.
I know. You want to smell?
No.
I'm lucky I don't have to share my bed with anybody. So. One of nature's ways of boosting animals' immune systems just before the weather starts turning when we're going into autumn and then winter. So it's vitamin C boosting time with a lot of the fruits that we have out there. Well, for me, it's been actually a pleasure. Yeah, we sat down here and we were thinking, and it happens all the time. We think, okay, what on earth are we going to talk about? and are we going to be able to fill the time? And the time has gone. Pat, thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Good luck for the drive tomorrow.
Okay, great. We'll try our best. Yeah.
Okay. Just find elephant track somewhere for me for the afternoon. You can find as many cats as you want, but just an indoor for me that I can follow up on in the afternoon. But it looks like we're going to be going out tomorrow, because it looks like Craig and Seb and Catherine and Will managed to finally sort things out on the vehicle. I couldn't contribute at all to all of that. I tried to contribute my screwdriver set, but they didn't even need that, so I couldn't do anything about it but sit on the sidelines. So I'm grateful to the guys for putting in all that time, poring over that vehicle in the heat and sorting out that issue. So with a bit of luck, with for all intents and purposes, we're going to be out at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, Central African time. Patrick on presenting, and Seb will be on camera. So from me, Mar, and
Patrick. Bye for now.
Seb's behind camera, Craig in final control, Catherine learning things next to Sid. And that's all of us here at Safari TV and Wild Earth. Thanks for joining us. We love you lots, and thanks for your support. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.